to CNN. Tucker Carlson is out at Fox News. The right-wing network just announced the two have parted ways. CNN senior media reporter Oliver Darcy is here with more on this. What are you learning? He was out on Friday. Will we see him say goodbye?
We're not going to see him say goodbye. This is really stunning news coming from Fox. They say his last show was April 21st. They put out a very short statement. They say they thank him for his service. And that's it. That's all we know right now. But of course, this comes days after. Last week, you remember, Fox News settled this massive defamation lawsuit with Dominion Voting Systems over the election lies that it promoted in the wake of the 2020 election. So they paid out $787 million, the highest known defamation settlement ever publicly known in U.S. media. So this is coming days after that. Unclear, of course, whether this is related.
We have this breaking news, and Kaylee actually said, what took so long? CNN is parting ways with star anchor Don Lemon. The network made the announcement just a moment ago, actually. And it says, quote, CNN and Don have parted ways. Don will forever be a part of the CNN family, I guess, but he can't work there. And we thank him for his contributions over the past 17 years. We wish him well and will be cheering him on in his future endeavors. Don Lemon also speaking out, writing a statement. Here's part of that. I was informed this morning by my agent that I have been terminated by CNN. I am stunned. So clearly they see this differently. After 17 years at CNN, I would have thought that someone in management would have had the decency to tell me directly. At no time was I ever given any indication that I would not be able to continue to work. I have loved at the network. Kaylee McEnany.
Yeah, it's quite something. You know, we just, I would just say we saw him take a break briefly for some comments he made, and then here we are.
Here we are. More Outnumbered in a moment.
Hey folks, Dale Jackson here. We got to talk about the resignation, the removal from the airwaves, the firing of Tucker Carlson. And yeah, something happened to Don Lemon today as well, but we all know that's not very important. Let's look at these two cases together just for a quick second. One of these gentlemen, Tucker Carlson, had the highest rated show on cable news. It was probably the most important political show on in the country, and it was the leading voice of conservatism in the country as well. Nowhere else were you hearing people quoting talk show hosts on the floor of the House and the Senate. Nowhere else did a guy say something and it just end up all over the place on other cable news shows, on CBS, NBC, ABC, on their newscasts, all over the internet. Tucker Carlson was the guy. He had more reach than anyone else, more stroke than anyone else. He mattered more than anyone else. And it had a lot to do with his presentation, and it had a lot to do with his topic selection. His topic selection was interesting because when it came to issues like Ukraine and the vaccine, nobody was more interested in pushing what things that turned out to be true than Tucker Carlson. Whether it's the explosion of the pipeline or the issues with the jab, whatever it is, Tucker Carlson was ahead of all of this. And he was leading the way in these conversations. Now, what pushed Tucker Carlson out? There's a lot of questions about that right now, and we don't have any answers. The obvious thing would be the Dominion lawsuit. That would be the obvious thing. Something having to do with the Dominion lawsuit that led to this. Something. Now, maybe they wanted him to apologize, or they wanted him to say something he wasn't willing to say, or who knows? Maybe it's part of the deal they cut. We don't know anything at this particular point in time. But that's the most obvious thing. The second thing, of course, would be revenue. It's a very expensive show to produce because the individual involved in the show is very well paid. But was he able to generate the revenue necessary in order to maintain that and his staff and make money for the company? Lots of questions about that. Was it having an impact on other shows? Now, there was something else that happened, and we'll talk about it probably in another video over the weekend, and it's this idiot saying this.
Isn't. And when you look at what Tucker Carlson and some of these other folks on Fox do, it is very, very clearly incitement of violence. Very clearly incitement of violence. And That is the line that I think we have to be willing to contend with.
Now, this woman has no idea what she's talking about. Cable news is not regulated by the government, nor should it be. We don't regulate political speech at all, nor should we. But AOC would tell you that there is fascism afoot, authoritarian fascism everywhere. What she wouldn't tell you is she's the authoritarian. She's celebrating this right now that Tucker Carlson has been removed from the airwaves. And I don't care what you think about what Tucker Carlson said. If it was anything other than a business decision, that's a violation of the spirit of free speech. Not, let me just listen to me. Listen to me. Not the letter of the law, the letter of the amendment, none of that. It is a violation of the spirit of free speech, if that is the case. I don't think that's it. No one's listening to AOC. She's an idiot, and stupid people say stupid things all the time. This is just an example of that. And a lot of people are suggesting maybe she had something to do with this. I don't think that's the case. I think this is an issue where Tucker Carlson and Fox News got sideways on something. And now, whether that something is internal, maybe it's something personal, maybe it's something political, and maybe it's revenue related, whatever it is, I doubt AOC had anything to do with this. She's just an imbecile. Now, as for Tucker Carlson himself, when I talked about things that he was very likely to be the only person speaking about these things, Ukraine's another one. And I mentioned the pipeline and stuff like that. But the overwhelming majority of people on cable news, including on Fox News, take the position that the war in Ukraine needs to be fought and we need to be as involved as possible. Tucker Carlson did not take that position. There was also this idea that Ukraine was kicking Russia's ass. Tucker Carlson did not take this position. I think the easiest way for us to know what happened here is to have Tucker Carlson say what happened here. Outside of that, whoever replaces Tucker Carlson will probably give us a clue of what actually happened here. I'm not going to go into it's like a big conspiracy to get Tucker Carlson fired or anything like this. My guess is it is financially related, whether it's to the Dominion lawsuit or to advertising or something like that. In the media world, as someone who hosts 2 radio shows and a TV show, I can tell you this right now. You can either have revenue, which will protect you, or you can have high ratings in revenue that will protect you. If you do not have revenue, it doesn't matter how high your ratings are. It just doesn't matter. If your show's not making money, your show's not going to be around. It's that simple. I know we want like some broad conspiracy or something here. I'm just not so sure that is the case. Now, if you have high ratings and no revenue, well, then you blame the people who sell your show. But if you've got a bunch of people who refuse to buy your show and they're buying other stuff on the network, then maybe that's another issue here. So revenue is probably the bigger issue here, whether it's related to paying out $787.5 million to Dominion or whatever's coming down the line with the other lawsuit that's coming on this. I don't know, but that's my guess, as opposed to political opinions, because they knew who Tucker Carlson was all along. He hasn't changed anything. So maybe they'll tell us eventually. As for Don Lemon, let's talk about Don Lemon here for just a second. Don Lemon has been demoted from primetime to morning time. And in radio, you want to be morning drive. Okay, everybody wants to be morning drive. That's where you want to be. You want to kick off the day. You want to put your most dominant personalities there. Rush Limbaugh was an anomaly in the middle of the day, obviously. But you want to start off your day strong, and that's what you want to do. So usually in radio stations, your most dominant personality is on in the morning. That's the idea behind it. Afternoon drive is maybe 2 or 1B in that situation. In TV, prime time is God. Okay? Don Lemon went from prime time to morning time. His coworkers hated him. And that was obvious. It was embarrassing, hilariously embarrassing. Let's just be honest with you. It was hilariously embarrassing. But his ratings were terrible. He was a PR nightmare on top of that. So the revenue issue was probably a problem with him as well. And they just wanted to cut their losses. over the last couple of weeks, he got into some very stupid dust-ups. We all know about the she's not in her prime conversation.
She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s, maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
I'm not saying
decade.
I agree.
And of course, we all know about the latest conversation he had with Vivek Ramaswamy, where he basically said, well, whatever ethnicity you are, while discussing the Second Amendment and African Americans.
Here's where you and I have a different point of view. I think we should be able to express our views regardless of the color of our skin. We should have this debate
I'm not saying you
without me
shouldn't express
regarding
your
you as a
views, but I
black
think it's
man,
insulting that
but
you're
me
sitting
regarding you
here,
as a fellow citizen.
that you're
That's what I
sitting
think we should
here,
say.
whatever ethnicity you are, explaining to me
Whatever ethnicity I am,
about
I'll
what
tell
it's
you.
like to be black in
Whatever
America.
ethnicity I am,
I'm
I'll tell
sorry.
you what I am. I'm an Indian American. I'm proud of it. But I think we should have this debate. Black, white, doesn't matter.
I think we should have this
on
debate.
the content of the
If
ideas.
you're going to do it, you should do it in an honest way and in a
I
fair
think-
way. And what you're doing is not an honest and fair way. Okay?
With-
But we
with-
appreciate you coming on.
With
Thank
due
you for
respect,
that.
Don, I look forward to
Thank you very
continuing
much.
that
I appreciate
conversation.
it. We'll
Thank
continue
you.
the conversation.
Thank you.
You so much.
Thank you, Papa.
We'll talk about China.
Yes, let's talk about
next
China.
time you come back.
Oh, thank you. Much to say on declaring independence from China.
Okay,
Something you
can
can
we
add
move on now, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don Lemon was a joke, and he was treated like a joke and run out the door as a joke. Of course, they're going back and forth now more publicly about what happened and why he is no longer on the air at CNN. That tells you that relationship ended way more acrimoniously than the Tucker Carlson Fox News situation. So just keep that part in mind. What happens next? Tucker Carlson could go out on his own. Tucker Carlson could join Newsmax. Tucker Carlson could go to Spotify like Joe Rogan. Tucker Carlson is a brand amongst himself now and could probably go do his own thing. Don Lemon's very different, though. Maybe he's not hated across the board on the other cable channels, at least not MSNBC. So maybe he goes over there and acts as a contributor or joins ABC News or something as a contributor as well. His days as a host are probably over. Maybe he tries to do something on the internet. I don't know. But Don Lemon, his career is in big trouble. It's probably the lowest point it's ever been. Tucker Carlson, big question mark for him, but I don't think his career is in trouble. He will still be a factor if he decides he wants to be, no matter where he goes. As I wrap this up, I want to leave you with some clips of Tucker Carlson talking about Don Lemon, since they're both in the news.
We kind of admired Don Lemon. How can a man so obviously limited have such boundless self-esteem? Doesn't he know he's an idiot? No, he has no idea. This is the guy who once suggested that a commercial airliner had been eaten by a black hole. And when people laughed at him, he seemed completely unbothered by their laughter. In a world of intellectual pretense, Don Lemon is not ashamed of being dumb, or for that matter, ashamed of anything else. When he got fired last year from his primetime gig for low ratings and reassigned to mornings, he told viewers it was a promotion, and he seemed to mean it. So whatever else you say about Mr. Don Lemon, he is unflappable, or so we assumed. It turns out there is, in fact, one thing that bothers Don Lemon, and that's not being the prettiest person on the set. That drives him insane. So possibly as a kind of torture, a kind of punishment, CNN's new president, Chris Licht, paired Don Lemon with two much younger, much more attractive co-hosts, Caitlin Collins and Poppy Harlow. And the normally steely Don Lemon began to melt down before our very eyes. The other day, for example, after Caitlin Collins interviewed a Republican member of Congress, Don Lemon launched into an attack on Republicans that wasn't actually an attack on Republicans, but a not-so-veiled attack on his co-host, Caitlin Collins. You can't do that. Producers in the control room turned up the music to get him to be quiet. We're going to commercial now. But he shushed them to keep attacking her. Watch.